Oh wait, is this not showing?
It says we're live.
Is the screen not moving for you guys?
It is.
Oh, okay. Because it's not moving in mine. You can hear the audio, right?
Nope.
Okay. 1 second. All right. Things are moving now. All right, everybody, pay attention. So, what do you think of what you just saw?
This is the greatest game. 2020 Game Awards. And I love Hideo Kojima, that's all I can tell you.
In my opinion, this game enlightened me. This game brought me to the light I didn't see before, but now I can see.
You own the game. You bought it.
Yes, of course. It was for 0.2 KD. I don't care how many dollars that is, but
My
I
Steam
had.
is still in KDs. I see it.
um, I just loved somebody making a game to prove a point, and the entirety of the game is just something. Just so beautiful. The internet, man. I love this. Um, so yes, welcome everybody to the Salt Grinders. You can see we have a different location. We're in a different location, enjoying ourselves some smoke. Um, we have a bunch of stuff for you today.
The only smoke I do is hickory. You best believe it.
You, you piece of shit! How dare you? How do you even? You're in Canada. You're supposed to smoke like hooch or something.
I had a friend who we were in the same class in 12th grade. He also went to Canada. And from his Instagram, I can tell that he consumes 25% of the weeds population. The weeds population, yeah.
Yeah, of course he does. But let's start the topic list here.
Yeah, that's about time.
First thing we should cover. The recent Pokemon and Smash Directs that came out. Have
All
you been
right,
to them?
seen both of them. The Pokemon one was very good-ish. The Pokemon, what's it called, Mystery Dungeon? Everyone's ejaculating on it, and I think that's fine. I didn't play the originals, but I know people who did. The whole thing with the DLC for Sword and Shield uh,
Hmm?
is a good thing in concept, but I think it's going to be shit in execution. Why is it good in concept? If this was any other generation where the games were higher quality overall and you were paying less, the idea of not having to pay for an entire new game and sit through an entire new adventure just for like a few extra stuff at the end,
Yeah.
yeah, that is amazing. Uh, Sword and Shield was empty. It wasn't relatively to other games. It was too easy, not worth the money, from what I heard. Uh, but you're adding like two expansion packs. Each are worth half the price of a game, right? $30 each.
No, both are 30.
Both are 30. In that case, it makes it better. Okay. And I doubt they're gonna add that much content.
It won't be much.
There won't be much. Not to mention,
The only consolation with this is that you don't have to start a whole new game all over again like you would originally have to if like Platinum or Emerald, for example. That's the only consolation. But the thing is, the original game is $60 and the expansion pass is $30. So you're still paying $10 more than you would have if you just would have bought a $40 game and then another $40 game. You're still paying more, even though you're not buying another game.
but we get graphics though. Ooh.
No, what I'm more interested in is what they're gonna add 200 more Pokemon, right? Of the old guys, and that's a huge problem because, as far as I know, the metagame is balanced, but the
No.
Pokemon list bringing in, they're bringing a
Sword
ton
and
of them.
Shield competitive. If you take out the Dynamaxing part, is the healthiest a Pokemon metagame has ever been for since Generation 4.
Yep.
Dynamaxing uh, is a fun idea in game, but for competitive they banned it
I don't like any
because
of the gimmicks.
it has too many problems. First of all, the first major issue is that you can Dynamax anyone at any time. And the vast majority of the times, you just force your opponent to Dynamax too, if they want to not lose. Second problem is that the secondary effects for all the moves are busted, like setting terrain, raising stats and
In this
whatnot.
case, of course, we're considering singles, right?
Singles, doubles, it's better because doubles just generally is a uh, healthier format for competitive. That's why VGC does double because there's a lot more. There's a lot more strategy. There's a lot more thinking of when it comes to doubles than when it
But that's
comes to
not what most
singles.
people play.
Most people play singles, at least online. Singles 6v6. And Dynamaxing just doesn't work. When Dynamaxing was allowed in single 6v6, one of the most used Pokemon that basically on every team was Ditto. Because you can copy Dynamaxing and copy the stats there. And that was a must if you don't want to get swept by one Pokemon, any Pokemon. I remember when I first started playing online, I didn't know what any of the Pokemon do. Everyone was using Barraskewda, which is a pure water type with Swift Swim. You Dynamax it, the water attack sets the rain for your Swift Swim, and the fighting moves gives you +1 attack and you sweep. And everyone thought that's
Right,
going to be the worst thing on the planet, the most busted thing. After they banned Dynamax, no one on Earth uses it again.
right.
So
So,
it's the idea is only they added the most broken game mechanic. You know, every game, every generation, they have to add this new mechanic to spice the game up. This one was the most broken, but apart from that, Pokemon wise, it is the healthiest and the most balanced. Um, when they are adding more Pokemon, right? Uh, there's only like a set of Pokemon that are an issue. The
So
vast majority
even
of it.
so even with the DLC, there still won't be all the Pokemon in the Sword
Oh
and
No,
no,
Shield.
you only need like four of them. They start with T and end with whatever. They're the Tapus. The Tapus are the problem. They were the problem
the
last generation. They're going
Tapos,
to be the problem
yeah,
now.
they were the problem last generation.
That's
Uh,
that's the main concern here. Landers is coming back. I don't want Landers back. I don't play, and I don't want Landers back.
Is the winds coming from my mic or another one?
Probably mine.
Mine too. Mine isn't particularly good this time.
Shit mics here on Salt Grinder.
So yeah,
Please join
excuses,
Patreon.
peoples. Yes, give us
Uh,
Patreon.
I want to talk about Patreon later. That's the problem. But on the topic of
Sure.
Pokemon, yeah, it's the Tapus, Landorus. If
Right.
they decide to bring Ash Greninja back, A- Ash Greninja is my number one hated Pokemon ever, for one simple reason. If you guys played the Generation 6 competitive, Greninja was a problem,
Yes.
Protean.
Yes. Protein. Yeah.
But it wasn't
They
unstoppable.
they banned it to Uber. Somehow Generation 7 brought an even worse Greninja and even more OP, and it was fine. They didn't ban it.
Did they put it on the same tier as Mega Rayquaza? Or
No,
it's just
no,
Uber
it went back to OU. Like it wasn't banned.
Regardless, um, bringing new Pokemon always comes with its own annoyances. And if the legendaries are as they should be, banned, everything will be fine. But that's not how that will go. And what
Well, I mean, they
Pokemon like
still let you use
Landorus
like
do,
Latios and Latias and things like that.
yeah, I don't think they should. Um, there are certain Pokemon that you can get away with, but generally, in formats, for example, in tournaments, because I'm mainly thinking like the VCG tournaments here. Um, Not having certain Pokemon, Terrakion, Landorus, really allows somebody flexibility with when they're team building. With these guys back, it's ridiculous. And Louis is busy at the moment. He'll show up when he shows up. Uh, but yeah, um, this is my main worry. Any game I like is game that allows you multiple ways of playing. And what Gen 6 did is it limited that with their Mega Evolutions. In Gen 7, they limited that with the Tapus and the Misty Terrains. And now that it seems healthy, just even with the Dynamax, uh, they're
Mega
bringing
Evolutions
more.
weren't that bad.
Yes, they were.
I actually
Uh,
like Mega
Mega
Evolutions.
at least
Evolutions were a
when they
terrible
were in
concept.
Oras. The second they reached Oras, it just became
My
ridiculous.
own, or I would say it went downhill with Oras, but originally, like just looking at X and Y, I did like the original direction they were going, giving
It
Pokemon
wasn't so
that
bad.
didn't have any
Yeah.
play a chance again. Like Pokemon like Pidgeot and Beedrill getting Mega, that's a good thing. But Pokemon like Metagross and Salamence, there's no reason they should have gotten one.
Not only that, they didn't really utilize it to its full effect. It just became a better version of certain Pokemon instead of being an entire different take on the Pokemon. Or again, they give Charizard two forms. They just did everything you're not supposed to do. They approached it the wrong way. With Z moves, it wasn't that bad. The Misty Terrains the
I can't
terrains in
stand Z
general were horrible.
moves.
They were
It was
fine.
fine with Z moves. I think they
Yeah,
were fine. I don't know
like
why everyone hated
Charmeleons.
them. They're certainly better than Dynamaxing because they were a one-time thing. Now Dynamaxing, you have 3 turns of Z moves, and vast majority of Z moves in competitive play, they were known which Pokemon use which Z moves.
So
It was meta.
doesn't Dynamaxing essentially make Z moves obsolete?
Dynamaxing would have. Yes, it does. Again, every gimmick will make the other one look worse by comparison. Um, but generally, I have no problem with Dynamaxing.
Yeah.
I have no issue with it. What I have issue with is an unhealthy metagame because I like
What
Pokemon
I
and I would like
think,
to get back to it, but I'm not
and
gonna if it
It
stops me.
was Gen 6 was the only generation where I seriously played Pokemon competitively.
Oh, I played
X
since
and
Gen
Y
4.
was one of the best. X
I
and
still
Y
think
really fixed a lot of problems with Gen 5 without adding its own. Mainly, it fixed dragons and it fixed Weather Wars. These were
but
the
it got
two
ruined
biggest
by
issues.
Oras.
Yeah, yeah.
Auras
Oras was just shat on it.
was a very unhealthy meta, very stally, very
Primal Groudon.
megas.
Ugh, don't even,
But,
don't even
but
let me
okay,
start.
VGC
They
wise,
brought up,
VGC wise, I have
yeah,
a lot of hope in the VGC team. I think they're a different team from the guys at Game Freak, and I think they will not allow legendaries anymore, and they will categorize tapus and all of that as legendaries. Uh,
I hope so. I do
I
hope so.
really think so, uh, because they've done that enough already, I think, and they've seen the results. And I think they do care about their formats, right? They fixed a lot of issues that were prominent in previous years, like this game has your timer system. A problem in
Right.
previous games were timer stalling. You'd literally watch people just sit there, pretend to be thinking to win games.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's in every competitive thing that requires a time limit, but it should really be
And the
taken
problem
care
is,
of in
it's
the game.
fair enough because if they don't do anything about it, you can't complain. If
Yes,
it's in the game
and
and it wins you, you can do it.
yes, Toby Gen 7 was just nothing but tapus and fairies, and that's exactly why I'm worried about this new upgrade when all these guys are coming back. It's just there are certain Pokemon that are a bit too good, um, and I would like that not to be the case in Gen 8. The game is already like pointless as it is. I don't want the competitive side to be gone too. I'm already discouraged from buying the game. So the second I heard about the DLC, I'm like, well, that's even more reason for me not to buy the game until it's revealed that I'm gonna enjoy myself on at least on the competitive aspect. With that
What do
said,
you
though,
guys
what
think
about
about the regional variants?
No, they're fine.
different deformed? Yeah, I like that. You don't need to make new
The
Pokemon;
cool
just
idea.
redesign them.
Yeah, I mean,
However,
it'll become a problem if they only do it for Kanto Pokemon, though.
But they stopped doing that.
yeah, they added some Pokemon from other gens. I
The
still
Galarian
I
forms,
still
most of them aren't Kanto.
Yeah, they're expanding their horizons a bit. However, I do have one problem. Gen 8 had very weird designs. One of them being the evolution of Farfetch'd. You know, um,
I
Surface.
don't, I I don't
they had
like any
very
of the fossil Pokemon.
The
there are a
fossil
lot of
Pokemon
Pokemon
were the obvious
designed
joke.
badly.
Like, they were meant to be
It's,
designed with.
they're just um, I don't know what the design philosophy for Gen 8 was, but I don't like it. It's just disappointing. Um,
I just like Ken Sugimori's Pokemon designs over James Turner, in general.
Not only that, if your best designed Pokemon is a teacup, maybe you should think, you know?
He designed Vanillux. It's an ice cream cone.
He also made Shadow Lugia, James Turner.
Really?
Which, yeah, he made
Top,
Shadow Lugia.
top 10 forgettable Pokemon. Shadow League.
Oh, come on, I like that game. Love the GameCube games.
Um, I would like to ask you guys now that we covered the Pokemon Direct, what about the Smash Direct? I mean,
I've never
Waste of a
been
character
blue
slot.
balled so hard in my life. I have never been blue balled this hard. Man, literally, the guy was fucking with us so bad. In his direct, he counted on his fingers using binary just to flip us off in the middle of it. Did you see that? What a legend! I've been played, and from now on, I'm not gonna expect anything from new DLC for Smash.
no, no. First things first. You have to keep in mind. Um, I'm happy about this DLC. Here we are. I thought I was playing Fire Emblem. Now I'm seeing Mario in my game downloaded. Now I see Luigi in my Fire Emblem game. I like that. It's fresh. It's nice to see something
So
fresh
Smash
in the game.
Brothers is a Fire Emblem spinoff?
Um, Basically, like I expected the Three Kingdoms main character Bailiff to come into Smash. I knew he was coming eventually. It was the
Yeah,
worst time for
eventually.
it. It was the worst time for them to add it. To end the
It,
first season of DLC characters with yet another Fire Emblem character, bad idea, and it sat well
He
with
should
no
have
one.
been the second character in the second pass.
Yes, something like that, right?
They should
Like,
have added Cuphead, man. Cuphead would have been a good DLC character.
um, I'm okay with Cuphead being like a skin. What I'm not okay with is the me characters having so little movesets. They should really expand on the Mii's if they're gonna.
Wait,
Anybody who
Cuphead
wants
is
to.
already a skin? I thought they were gonna make him
Yeah,
a character.
It's a they made a skin from Me Gunner, so another Sans.
yeah. So what they're doing whenever they don't want to add an entire new move set for a character, they're just put him in the me skins. I have no problem with that. It's clever. I get to play him, and you don't get to make a move set for him. However, I need to have more move sets for the Mii's, and they need to be viable and actually interesting to play. As they
What
are
if the
right
They're
skins
now,
better than
come with at
previous games
least?
now.
What if the skins come at least with at least like maybe 1 to 2 special
special
moves to
moves.
add to the
Yes,
characters?
They should have
yes.
done
See,
that, yeah.
now you're thinking, right? They can do stuff in that Me creator, and they can expand it for any character they don't want to design for. Instead, um, we get just skins, and we get a Fire Emblem character. And I have no issue. I like the Three Kingdoms. Yeah, I like that game, but I know the rest. I'm not as into Smash as certain other players, and I know people are sick of sword characters, and they're sick of Fire Emblem. Come on,
Everyone's just
give me
waiting for
something.
Goku and Smash Brothers.
I know personally, I want Geralt of Rivia in Smash Bros. Um, because as far as I'm concerned, Smash Bros is a Hall of Fame, and The Witcher needs to be there somewhere.
People think they're probably gonna add Dante since they're putting the Devil May Cry games on the Switch.
Um, I mean, by
Eventually.
all means, why not? Yeah, why not? As far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier. I already like the way they like Fire Emblem designs or Smash or Smash makes their characters and how they play and how different they are. Like every time they bring something different and fresh. Um, so I'd love to see them put everything in there. As far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier. The more interesting, the better. But my primary issue is. The Mii's, really. Personally, I just want more support for the Mii's. Give us 4 extra move sets for each me character, especially the sword fighter, because the sword fighter is unplayable as far as I'm concerned.
Actually, it's the
Uh,
second best, I think. Or the
no,
best.
Oh,
not even close. Not
oh
even
shit!
close. It's his movements are just too slow, too telegraphed. I can't hit anything with him. In exchange, the fighter has really nice moves, nice grabs, nice hits, and the projectile guy, like if you pick the right moves, you can just basically spam to death and win that way. But I hope to see more from the Mii's personally. Just give us something. Why not, right?
Smash is now being treated as the Hall of Fame of gaming. If you get into
Yes, I just
Smash,
said that. Yeah.
you said that, I was getting a hot dog. Anyhow,
Hmm.
and I have one problem with that is that people see all these games, well, the games they used to play as kids and the characters from them. They just want to see them because that's their nostalgia should be in the Hall of Fame. Even though they forget that many of them wouldn't really work in a Smash Bros. You
Setting.
know, setting
Yeah.
in that fighting setting. Like, what's fucking character from Mario RPG gonna do? Forgot his name.
Actually, here's something interesting. Have you seen the recent DLCs? All of them. If you notice, they all get released, and when they get released, you get a game relating to that character coming out with it on the Switch. So I don't know about Joker, and I don't know about Piranha Plant. They probably didn't. These were just filler, but um, Banjo and Kazooie came with Banjo and Kazooie games, and Terry came with games coming on the Switch, right?
They put the
And
Banjo Kazooie games on the Switch.
yes, and I think they made a new one too. Um, and what they also have is with the
Wait,
Bailiff came just right around the corner where the new Fire Emblem DLC is coming for Three Houses, where with an extra storyline. So it's as far as I'm concerned, like Nintendo uses Smash to promote its games on the Switch. So you play the
That I'm
character.
fine with.
The same thing with
That I
Hero.
like.
With Dragon Quest. Yeah.
I think
Uh,
Fire Emblem series deserves more players. Try it.
no.
But you don't think so? Three houses. You don't think?
No.
I
Okay.
give Fire
I
Emblem
like.
Awakening a chance. It's all right, but Fire
No. I
Emblem
like.
can get really repetitive.
I like Fire Emblem. Okay. They did. They. It was a massive upgrade in Three Houses. Okay. I have no issue with that. But mm, I have a problem with the fact that they really didn't change the core mechanics yet. They're really following that formula that Nintendo loves, which is if it's ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But I have an issue. Upgrade it, make it better. It's still the same game from 20 years ago.
Is
Okay,
it still?
add more to it. It is. There isn't much that changed. You have a weapon triangle, and then you have magic, and you have archery, and you have Pegasuses that get hurt if you shoot them, and it's just okay. I'll play it, and I'll play it for the story, and they made a good story with Three Kingdoms. However, I would have loved it way more if I had seen something new. Again, I have the same issue with Pokemon. The reason I didn't buy the new games, it's the same bloody game from 1996. You know, come on, give me something
No,
new.
it's a relatively worse game.
Um, the point is innovate. You know how Mario Odyssey is the same game, but they always come with a very interesting game changing mechanic. You know,
That's one. That's one thing
what?
I'll say is like that's one thing I'll say. You just brought up the Mario series is people will always say that Mario is essentially the same game, but there's so much innovation when it comes to each iteration.
Yes, the
Sunshine is
core is
not
the
the same
same.
as Galaxy. Galaxy is
Yes,
not the same as Odyssey. They're not the same as the Mario Bros. Games. They're each different.
they have a they have a core mechanic that is attributed to them. So for Fire Emblem, it's the moving, it's the weapon triangles, but they still use numbers and upgrades and level ups and grind.
So keep the
Fire
core
Emblem
the
was
same,
way
but
too grindy.
innovate, and play around
Yes,
with it.
innovate in it. Give us something new, something interesting, right? Um, what did they innovate in Fire Emblem? They added monsters, so now they're bigger. They have bosses that you can kill, and they take multiple areas. And they gave you a repeat mechanic where you can skip time, like go back in time and change moves instead of soft resetting. These are not innovations. These are quality of life. I need something new. Give me something fresh. Um, Also, Fire Emblem was way too grindy, as I said.
What do
Um,
you guys think of grinding in games generally?
I think grinding should be fun somewhat, and it shouldn't be too much of clicking the same button over and over and over again. Just give
What
it
are
a
some
layer
good
of interest.
examples of grinding that you guys can think of? I can't think of any good examples of grinding. I think
The
grind,
only kind of grinding I ever enjoyed in my life was shiny hunting in Pokemon.
but that's not really grinding. That's hunting.
That
It's.
is,
I
yeah,
mean, grinding for progression is what I mean.
I
Grinding,
don't like.
Um,
grinding for progression.
I have one particular game for RPGs that surprised me on how fun the grinding was, and that was Digimon Cyber Sleuth. Um, so the way they fixed their grind is basically they allowed you to find so to grind items. You can grind normally, the same as you do. For example, let's say you want to level up your Pokemon, right? You would just battle until you get enough XP, right? What they did in Cyber Sleuth is they allowed you to find certain items and certain Digimon that have these abilities, which is mainly get more XP. And if you stack them up in the right way, one encounter can give you a ton and a ton of XP.
Oh, that's just
Then,
like Audino from Gen 5.
um, I
Or
guess,
builds
yeah,
upon that.
but 100 times more, 100 times more. 100 times more elaborate and way more powerful. Crimson Louis is unavailable at the moment. He'll come back whenever. And what? Besides that, in Cyber Sleuth, Basically, to evolve certain Digimon, you have to get to increase their ABI. Their ABI is basically like their IVs in Pokemon. To increase their ABI, you digivolve them and then you de-digivolve them into their forms, and that's how you increase the ABI. Which and to evolve you need to be above certain level. So what you do, so the grinding is you want to increase the ABI to get the evolution you want. So you evolve it into something you don't want, devolve it to get the ABI boost, and then level it up via what I just told you, the the stacking up of the items and the Digimon that gives you XP, and then once you get the right ABI and the right level of XP, boom, you get the right evolution you want. You grind them up quickly because every time you evolve, you reset the level to one, um, and then you're ready Digimon, and you can keep doing that. And there are 200 Pokemon to explore via the Digivolve route. So every time you're doing something new, and they allow you a route where you can get these items relatively easily if you grind for them and progress in the story at the same time. So all of that at once really made the grind enjoyable because the progress is easy to get and you feel clever for discovering these combos. While in something like Pokemon, if you're gonna get a Pokemon to level 100, you're just gonna click a button over and over and over and over and over again, beating the Elite
Yeah,
Four over and
I
over and
think
over. And
I think the worst offender for grinding in Pokemon is Gen 2. It's just you're so underleveled in Gold, Silver, Crystal from like the Elite Four all the way to Red.
yeah, yeah, I get you on that. Not only that, there were no ways to escape it. And if you wanted to make a fully powerful Pokemon, well, guess what? You have to increase
Yeah.
every EV score. All of them
Mm-hmm.
can go up to
Like,
252. So it's just a tremendous level of grind. It's
mm-hmm.
um,
Those are the
that's why
only
I'm
Pokemon games where my Pokemon are still in their 30s when you get to the Pokemon League.
no, actually, what I did to compensate for this is I instead of making six party team, I made a three-party team, and
Three-party team
because of
for
that,
Gold, Silver.
yeah, I actually followed the three-party team formula to avoid grind for the longest time in Pokemon until I found like ways to actually play efficiently and actually make a competitive team in the grind in the regular quest, right? And when I
Yeah,
started doing that, I started making a six-party team and going for gym leader runs, which
yeah.
is
But it's still
something you need.
useless when you get to post game because they don't have EV training. Like you can't use them for shit in the Battle Frontier.
Uh, that's not the point. The point is just enjoying myself with
Yeah.
underleveled Pokemon because they're more challenging to play with. Um, that's why the game needs an upgrade because I need to put like I have to impose rules upon myself in order to enjoy the game.
Mhm.
I can't use recovery items or I can't use items in general or
Oh yeah, item
I
strength.
make a uni type. Yeah, it's just a ton of self-imposed rules so the game can become like halfway challenging. And even if you put a hard mode, because I played like a Pokemon hack where they hack red and green, or rather fire red and leaf green, and they
Fire red.
just make yeah, and it's called hard mode, and it's basically they just make it harder, and by making it harder, they just made everything have a level. So you had to grind more. It was just boring, right? Because that's the limit of the Pokemon experience, and it's the journey. You really can't do much. So that's why this whole thing needs an upgrade. This whole thing needs to um, this whole thing needs to actually innovate and add new game mechanics. Like right now, video games enjoy the luxury of being able to have huge processing power, right?
Hmm.
So you
How
can
do
make
you?
interesting mechanics.
Yeah. I think one example of innovation that can lead to like innovation in a bad way, where you destroy the core of your series, is you could say that Resident Evil 4, while it was a good game on its own, was the downfall for Resident Evil because they were never able to recapture the core of what their series was able to do. Is they just kept getting worse and worse with 5 and 6 and 7 and
Um, they they are making a resurgence in the remakes because
hmm
they did the right thing and outsourced it to somebody who actually cares about the games. But I get your
Speaking of
point, which
changing
is
someone who cares about the games, as long as Masuda's leading Pokemon, nothing will ever change. It's fact right now.
yeah, Nintendo needs a bit of a you know, talk to the Yakuza there, in Japan, have them have them pop a few caps, so we get a new generation leading all these games, so they can finally innovate, right? The best example is when the head director, like the head of Nintendo, died, and everybody was sad, and I was like, yes, because I knew that meant good for the gaming world, and lo and behold, the Switch, the Switch now has like games like Bayonetta. It has you can play Doom on the Switch because that guy was the original CEO was like so family friendly. He would never allow anything out like edgy into his fun Nintendo device. Uh, and now we can actually use it to play any game we like. The Witcher's now here. It's like Doom. We have God knows whether they're gonna bring next. You have every dating sim out there. And and while I don't appreciate it, it's a nice money printing formula, like just
Is it?
everybody just oh yes, dude, dating sims make a ton of bank. Um,
Where? Who's
uh,
buying them? Japan?
not just Japan, anybody
No,
who's sad,
Americans.
really.
That's
Anybody dude, think about it. Think about it. Okay, first, graphic novels are easy to play. Okay, and not only that, they have a very interesting artwork with very generic and interesting characters,
Hmm.
right? Who all obsess over you, the loser in your mother's basement. That's a money printing formula.
they somehow make that something that is easily conceivable to obsess over in every single plot.
Yes, like, and you don't know
It's
why
amazing.
either, because like generic McGenericson the third is walking about and suddenly everybody loves him. How does that work? You know, but bec- generic McGenericson is designed in such a way that you can insert yourself into it. So it's a sad part of video games, but they make too much money.
I think the
I'm just
Fate
gonna say,
series started this trend.
the Fates.
Who?
Which one?
The Fate series, Fate Stay Night. I think that started it.
I don't know what the starter was, but I do not approve. You know what's worse than dating sims? Tile matching games that once you finish the tile matching, it shows you a picture of like an anime girl, and you're
Honey
supposed to
Pop.
like and every time you just finish the tile matching level, you get a very a picture you can get off Google
I
Images.
thought you
I'm
liked
sure about that
Bejeweled
shit.
games though.
What?
I thought you liked Bejeweled games though.
No, no, I don't. I despise them, and you know that, and you're trying to
Do
trigger
not
me, and I won't allow
do
you.
not bring Bejeweled into this. Bejeweled is a hero. They just
No,
no stay out
guys,
of it.
don't, don't, you fucking idiots. I, I, I will not stand for this. Bejeweled is the reason, okay, everything wrong with the phone games genre happened, okay? It made so much money, everybody's like, oh, so that. No, no.
Anyway,
The
all I can
first,
tell you, Trillion, is that you do not appreciate progression in video games. Doing the Bejeweled 6 times in a row gets you a shirtless pick, so you just don't appreciate it.
so apparently, Louis is lost in the woods. Uh,
Oh,
Thoughts and prayers.
I know, Nicky Bean. Just you can do something very simple. All you need to do is just light a match. Okay, start yet another fire. No one will notice. Don't worry, it's just another day in Cali. And then by the time the forest goes down, you know the way to home. How about that? It's how did you get lost in the woods? I guess we don't have woods over here, so I wouldn't know. But are you guys lost
man,
like in a car or
man, just call an Uber, man.
You can get
go on
lost in the
Uber?
woods pretty easily.
Uh, we don't have woods over here. We just have open terrain, desert terrain. You can just like yell
I keep
Your
forgetting
ah.
that.
deserts suck. I've always heard stories about people going to the bar and stuff. Bar is their desert until I went there. It's just a bunch of tents and people, and they
Yes.
like do things
For
that you do
context,
anywhere else.
whenever it becomes winter over here, people just camp out, and with the way they camp out is they set an elaborate tent formations, okay, at random spots in Kuwait, and they just like go there and chill until the winter period is over, and then they decamp and leave. There is no point to it. It's basically if you don't have money for a chalet, that's your chalet.
Do you guys have to deal with venomous snakes in public areas in Kuwait?
Uh, no, we don't have. If you find a snake, it won't be venomous, and the worst you can get are scorpions, but you rarely see those anywhere, really.
I like
Um,
snakes.
oh, the
I
plot
hate
thickens.
snakes.
Um,
Snakes are my favorite animal. So we can go at it 1v1.
They scare me, man.
Brilliant. Brilliant, Nick Kaveen, brilliant. Well, I hope you guys arrive, get out of your pickle soon. If worst comes to shove, call 911 and tell them we lost. In any case, um,
They're,
it's like how do you like the desert camp experience? Okay, as far as I was concerned, what we would do is we show up and then we'd bring like BB guns, and then we divide each other into teams, right? And what we do is we spent the entire morning, okay, just building fortifications and
See, I've never seen
prepare,
that.
prepare. Yeah, because people are not fun, okay? You build fortifications, okay? It's usually me versus my brother, okay? And we draft the teams, okay? So I pick first, then he picks, then I pick, then he picks, and then we
Draft from
finish the
who? Your
teams.
dad? Like,
No, my kids our age or below, right?
okay, okay.
So and then we divide each other into two teams, and then we're supposed to basically stop the other person or the other team from. You have to defend your base and attack the opponent's base. And anytime you get hit with a BB, you respawn at your base. And we can keep doing that, right? So we spent the entire morning building fortifications and battle plans. Okay, and then uh, in the afternoon after lunch and after we've eaten lunch and the food is digested, we just go to war for like 2 hours, and then after we're done, okay, and usually I lose, right? um, we go and randomly go and get some wood wherever you can find it, and then we get a desert fire going, and then we all sit in like a circle and start telling horror stories, laughing the entire way through, because our horror stories are usually told by people who cannot stop joking. So like we tell an elaborate, scary story in the most cringy, hilarious way you can think of, and it's just an overall a good time. And then we go home. It's that simple. But most people just go there and just like sit, watch TV in the desert.
how do they get
Imagine
TV
watching
in the
TV.
desert? Do they bring a generator
Uh,
with them?
yep. It's classic. You get a generator. You even get like a fucking elaborate toilet with you, with an entire sewage system, right? Holes dug and everything. They do everything. Imagine going to the desert only to be at home. That's how it's like.
It's the desert is not right next to the highway. Like you, I know Arab. When you're imagining it, you imagine like they drive into the middle of the desert and there's
We
nothing
don't,
and
yeah.
it's dunes. None of that. It's
It's
flat desert with just
it's just a
a
couple of
sea of
kilometers up
a
past
sea
here
of
and there, yeah.
tents. There's nothing.
And there is even regulation. You just kind of put your post there and they're like, this is my place now. And then elaborate cities spawn and shops,
But
right?
they make sure to
It's like
leave enough space for the buggies every 20 meters.
yes, that's one popular attraction that people use when they go to the desert. One guy who's clever realized that you can make a lot of money off kids if you just give them buggies and they go around. and so there's a lot. What ATVs? All right, so ATVs for you Americans, we call them buggies over here because we're uneducated and we call anything anything. Um,
Oh, four wheelers.
yeah, that's exactly what they are. Yes.
What?
Um,
A machine with four wheels? That's a clever name.
no, it's a bike but with four wheels. That's why they call it four wheelers. It's fine. It,
Bikes.
I
Bikes.
give you guys context. That's what I do, right?
Quadcicles. Quadcicles is what I'm
Um,
calling it.
but yeah, there is literally no point to it. And actually, our family we stopped a while back after we all grew old. They started using the same tent we'd set up, and they would set it up in my grandfather's place. They have a garden, and they would set up there, and they put because they're too lazy to go.
Okay, this is something I've never experienced, and I want you
Yeah.
to describe to our viewers here. What is a yakhur? What happens
Um, Imagine uninhabited land that can be inhabited. Okay, that the government wants you to inhabit, and imagine the government giving you that land for very cheap as long as you put a farm in it, with a minimum number of animals to grace off it. Um, and imagine you building that very cheaply and getting a bootleg chalet without a sea somewhere far away from home that you can use just to chill. That would be a very good description of what Ayakhur is.
there?
And
What
because
kind
it's
of
very cheap
animals
and
are
the
there?
land, chickens, goats, whatever you want, cows, whatever you can afford. And all of this becomes very affordable compared to like regular housing because it's so far away from anything. So the government can make a little bit of money off land that nobody cares about. Um, and in exchange, you get a large plot of land that you can put a pool in, which a lot of people do. They put a big house, um, and they just show up whenever, and they just go there and chill. Think of it like a fancier camp, really.
Vacation home.
Yes, minus the sea.
But
Like,
how can it be a vacation home if you need to go there to take care of your farm that you're supposed to have there?
what they do is they basically hire somebody, and his
Oh,
job entirely is to live there and to take care of the farm and clean the house before you come. That's his entire
sounds like
job.
a lot of hiring people to do things you don't want to do going
Yes,
on.
that's the crazy
Sounds
class in
like a
Egypt.
lot of cheap labor. Yeah.
Yes, extremely cheap labor here, and we import them from India and Egypt and all these places, and they're okay with doing this thankless job for like pocket change because pocket change, when converted into their own currencies, becomes a tremendous amount of money. So win-win.
So what can they do with that money in their home country? They can get like a big house and all that.
No, they can get their kids to college usually.
Really?
Every like Filipino laborer that worked with my mother in her pharmacies and whatnot, with the very little money they give them, they all have built houses in their home countries with that money.
Uh, okay, yeah,
All of
that's new. That's new to me, but when I know because we have my sister has a maid and she's very talkative, so I ask her questions. And one thing I'm like, "What do you do? What do you guys do with the money?" She's like, "Well, I'm just my kids need college education. I'm college educated because my mom did the same to me, so I'm doing the same to my kids. Here I am. Just once my kids are through college, I'm done working. It's that simple.
So what was the college education for then? You can't get a good job with the college education?
It's not that. It's that um, a job as a maid in Kuwait pays you more than a bachelor's job in the Philippines. It's that simple.
Oh,
Yep. So again, what's pocket change to us is a lot of money to them, and they say
Arab
it's
money.
pocket change because yeah.
are you still the
And
number one
I don't want to
currency,
give.
or did that change?
Yeah, yeah, we are. We will be the number one currency for a long time. And I have to say this. I say this like we live in, like we're super rich. We're not. Okay, we are comparatively rich if you compare our income to other
Don't you have
countries.
an elevator in your room?
Yes, but that took saving. it didn't spawn out of the fucking sky. My dad worked his way up, same as anybody.
Oh,
And
yes, of course.
uh, do you know that concrete is
Everybody gets
cheaper
a
than?
house when they get married from the government.
Shh.
Sounds like Section 8.
um, no, no, no. I will keep I will keep saying this. Um,
Do they
I'm
have
not saying
Section
you
8
don't.
housing in Kuwait? The
What is
equivalent?
Section 8?
Oh, Section 8 is basically just like affordable housing for people.
It's
Affordable
called
housing?
Awqaf.
No, not even
Basically.
close.
Awqaf
I
is.
wanted. No, no. The government gives you plots of land in places they want populated. Yes, that is true. But if you're gonna buy your own land, that's gonna cost you. That's gonna cost you a fuckload. We're not talking. I don't know how is a regular piece of land cost in the states?
I don't know.
Uh,
It depends on the
let's
area.
let's say a hundred
It's a
thousand.
big
It's gonna
country, Trillion.
it's gonna be full. I've seen plots of land go for like 500,000. Sanad, what's the housing prices in Kuwait? KD, right? So 300,000 KD. That's about 9,000 US dollars. Thou, right?
Just a million. Just a million.
Oh,
You
it's a
can get a
million.
house.
Yeah, it's
You
about a
can get a
million.
house for under 10,000 US dollars.
S-
Wait,
Yep.
where do you
So,
get a house for under $10,000? Where is that a
No,
thing?
nowhere. Literally
well,
nowhere.
well,
Okay,
the point
the
here
guy
is
said 1,900,000 dollars,
US
not
dollars.
90.
Yes.
I mean,
So
it really does depend on you where you live. America's a big country. Like
I
real
know, I
estate
know
is
you're.
not going to be the same in the middle of nowhere in Iowa like it is in New York City.
I don't care.
Don't
Pick
they
a
pay you
simple.
to live in Iowa?
um,
Or Nebraska, yeah,
regardless,
farmland. It's all
regardless, the point
farmland.
is the same. The point is the same. Is that actually affording your own housing is very expensive, but depending on the government to guarantee a house, that's not a big problem. They usually grant you houses in places they want populated. So they want the northern part of Kuwait to be populated right now. So they're giving everybody houses there because they want less traffic in this part of the southern part. So they're like, okay, we want the new families to move up there. In order to facilitate that, we're gonna give you houses.
They
Um,
open the biggest bridge that connects south to north.
yes, yes, they built the bridge and now it's connected to the little city, which hasn't opened yet.
What was that
Um,
giant bridge in China they built?
it's I don't know what the bridge is, but it's the bridge we built was pretty much the same. We basically built a long bridge through our Bay Area,
Hmm.
and it covers a long ass period. That's a half
Are
hour
there like
drive.
gas stations on that bridge?
Yes, yes. There are facilities to take a if you need to take a break, everything. And the point of that is basically to make the ride shorter from the northern area up to Kuwait City, the capital. So people who go there, they don't complain about, oh, we don't want to live there because there isn't, it's 5,000 hour drive, and by 5,000 I mean two. You lazy fucks, you know. um, but yeah, there are. It's a relatively small country with a lot of money, so there's a lot of things that are different, but our classes are still the same. You know, you can't be unreasonable with your money. A lot of houses that don't know how to handle their money, and I'm fortunate to be in a family where that is not the case. Um, they would still basically rely basically on debt to to sustain their lifestyle. And guess what? Unlike in the United States, debt carries over here. So if you
Oh, you
if your
inherit debt.
yes, if your dad is dead, you have to take on his debt. So a lot of Kuwaiti families, what they would do is they would have a very elaborate lifestyle, buy all the expensive cars, and have a four-story
And
house
then
all
just
built
have a
with
bunch of
debt.
kids take care of it.
Yeah, yes, um, it's horrifying. And a lot of people get screwed over.
That
A
is
lot
a
of people get
thing that
jailed for
happened.
not being able to pay debt. Um,
Do people
there's
have their lives destroyed by debt they inherit from their parents?
yes, yes, and it is a sad thing to say.
What's the
What
suicide
Um,
rate
type
from
of
that rate?
degeneracy is this? Hold up.
Not
This
very
is a
high,
thing that happens?
What?
What type of
What?
degeneracy is this? Like, that's an
Um,
actual thing that happens.
yeah, let me explain to you why though.
What happened to
Um,
Islamic values? I thought Kuwait
Islamic
was a
values.
Muslim country.
It is. That's why you gotta
Kuwait
kill
is.
yourself. Take on the debt like a champ. Um, and it goes like this, right? Um, there's a lot of social standing involved in Kuwaiti affairs. So if you have a kid, you're supposed to have one big celebration. And when the kid says his first word, you have to make a big celebration. And then you have to buy the
What?
most expensive candy and cake and uh, food, even though you can get the exact same value out of a way cheaper restaurant. Um, because there's a social stigma to it. If you don't do it, people start gossiping. So everybody's forced to spend way more than they should. And as a some kids, for example, when they get into college, they want the fanciest cars, and those guys compete with those other guys, and those guys compete with those other guys, and then what happens is basically everybody starts to one up each other by outspending
That
each
just
other.
sounds like an Arab thing in general instead of a Kuwaiti
Yes,
thing.
and
Like
they
always
can't
fighting
stand.
over who pays the bill whenever they go out to eat.
Yeah, no, that's just tradition. It's not really. There isn't a social stigma. It's just people. It's just the Arabs being kind of generous, but generally,
Kuwait is literally Instagram, but the place.
yeah, that's a good way of describing it, actually. And the worst part of all this is that people would go into debt in order to fulfill those social standards, and that's what screws people over. Is that if I don't go into debt and buy the fancy car or buy the fancy phone or upgrade my phone, if I have the old generation phone, oh no, people will look at me wrong. I have to buy the new phone
Phone
every
kid.
time,
Dude, okay. In
and so I
Kuwait,
upgrade.
I've had iPhone 4 for the longest time. All my phones were hand-me-downs. Eventually, it broke, and I got a Samsung S8 Plus. Everyone
Right?
during the time I had the iPhone 4, everyone would just look at me weird, like, "What is that?" Because everyone had the newest phones on earth all the time. I came to Canada, and everyone has really old phones. The new phones are a minority, and I got really
Yeah,
confused.
yeah.
I
They
got
don't have
culture
Arab.
shocked, genuinely.
Yasha, they don't have Arab money in Canada. It's a
I remember
culture
You know,
talking to a guy. I remember talking to a guy online from what was it? It was from Serbia, right? And
yeah,
I was talking to him, and he's like, "How many cars do you have in your house?" Okay, and I'm like, I don't know, six, right? He was like,
you really
"Holy
have
shit!"
6.
Yes, I do. Yes, we do.
Why?
One for each person and one spare.
Spare?
Yes,
Spare.
Spare?
in case one car breaks down. No, they're not all like super new models. Some of them are from the 2000s. Some of them are. We had a car from '96 for the longest time. But when I
Also,
told that guy from Serbia that our oldest car is from 1996, he's like, our newest car is from 1998. You know? Yeah. Holy shit! You have a car from 2006? Wow. He was so overwhelmed by our wealth because um, but um, I didn't know how to respond, right? But the market's huge on that shit here because you have to keep up, dude.
I
If
don't
you
know
share
how
a
it is in
car, that's
Kuwait.
disgraceful, you know?
I don't know how it is in Kuwait, but I know in Jordan, like people will become taxi drivers because taxi companies will pay for what car you get to use as the taxi driver. So people will just become a taxi driver to get a really nice car and then just be a taxi driver for their career since the taxi company will pay for that car. So they'll be paid off when
Okay,
they retire.
no,
Only
that's
to
a healthy
probably
choice.
crash the car because Jordan has some of the worst driving on this planet.
Oh yes,
I don't know
yes.
how I lived. I don't know how I survived one trip there.
Oh, you've been to Jordan.
Yeah, I've been to Amman and the other city with the university. The other city was fine. It was just students. Students don't do trouble.
I've only ever
But
been
in the
in Amman
capital,
really when I've been
it
in.
is a disaster.
Amman
Um,
and the Dead Sea. Did you go to
It's
the
like
Dead Sea?
everyone is depressed. Everyone's depressed and wants to die on the road. They want like that to be their excuse of their suicide. Cars never
yeah,
stop; they just drive. We almost crashed like 4 times in 1 week. But my
it
uncle is
reminds
quick
me.
on his feet.
It reminds me of my what my mother said about when she went to Iran, and just like the driving there is fucking scary. We took a taxi, and the taxi, somebody in front of the taxi missed a turn, right? So instead of waiting till the next turn, they actually in a highway went reverse and started traveling, like just going back so that he would go to the right turn. Okay, and everybody just allowed it, right? People like they understand. Yeah, that's what you do, right? And they just passed him by. Nobody honked. The taxi didn't honk. They just passed him. It's like that's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. And it's the look of freak according to my mother. It's like it was one of the most intense things she saw. Like suddenly, like somebody was just going to the reverse in a fucking highway. What the fuck? And everybody was so chill about it. It's it's brilliant. Um, but yeah, we're not. I'm trying to defend our. I know it's a losing battle with you guys. I know, but I still try. Okay, I still try. Like whenever somebody tells somebody to check their privilege, I just in my head I'm like, oh shit, you know.
Check your
Uh,
privilege, Trillion. Arab
I'm not
money is
white
hard to
though.
come by.
I'm not white though. I'm not allowed to. Um, in any case, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay.
Next up.
Have you guys been keeping up with Bernie and what's been happening to him with the press?
No. Is he dead
I
now?
saw I saw the CNN debate where they're like, Bernie, is it true that you said this about Elizabeth Warren? And then he's like, no, I never said that. And then they immediately go, Elizabeth Warren, what do you think about what Bernie said about you? It's
Absolutely
play
reprehensible.
the
Yeah.
actual you have to play the actual clip. I
No, no,
wasn't able to replicate it
we
well.
don't need that because Bernie had two hits happen to him this last week, right? Bernie got hit by this Elizabeth Warren bullcrap, where she basically accused him of saying that she shouldn't run because she won't win because she's a woman, right? And then she refused to shake his hand in a debate, basically to signify that. And
What
then
happened to
everybody,
the
everybody,
1/16th Cherokee?
who?
Elizabeth Warren about being Cherokee, and then it turned out she's like 1/16th or something.
All right, Pocahontas, right.
You
Um,
know what's
What
funny
is that?
is
Basically, she
guess,
claimed to be
guess
like
who
zero
defended
point
Bernie Sanders of all people on Twitter?
the natives.
No,
The
Donald Trump.
natives?
Of course he defended me, because nobody believed Elizabeth Warren. Nobody believed her. She tried to pull a tactic here, a very elaborate, very sneaky tactic, but everybody saw it and everybody's cringing out at it. But that's not
So no one bought it.
what was
Okay, good.
no one bought it. But that wasn't the major hit on Bernie. Bernie's campaign manager was caught on tape uh, saying that if Bernie doesn't win, he's gonna the entire country will riot and there's gonna be violence everywhere, and basically praising communism and just saying a bunch of things you just can't say, right? Um, about the conservatives, about everything wrong you would have never wanted anybody to say during your campaign was said. Okay,
So
and I
Bernie's a
bet
commie.
Um, maybe he is, maybe he's not, but he's surrounded by commies, and that alone is enough to discourage anybody from actually
Birds of a
voting
feather
for him.
flock together.
Well, yeah. I'm not one of an accusatory tone. Um, I'll be conservative with my judgment here. Okay, if bare minimum, his entire campaign staff is communist. So
Oh.
that's a very bad look on Bernie. I don't know how he's gonna recover from this. Dude, they screwed him over multiple times. I don't think I think it's too late at this point. Not only is he too old, the people he's around. He surrounded himself with the wrong people, and there we are.
Who's the
It's
leading
I think it's
Democrat?
right now Joe Biden.
Really?
Yeah, sad, right?
What the hell?
They don't have candidate.
How
You would
long does
think
he even have? I don't even think he has 4 years.
um I don't know, but I hope they don't put him up against Trump because he's not winning. He's not even close to winning anything. Um,
Trump is
their
most
best
likely
bet,
winning
honestly, their
It
best
needs
bet
to be
the
is
someone with a
Yang again.
strong TV personality,
Yeah,
which
I
Yang
would
doesn't
say
have that though. He doesn't have a strong TV personality.
Yang
he,
though
he
is
went
the
for the
anti.
online maneuver to
No,
appeal to
he's
the
the
cool
anti-Trump.
kids.
He's the anti-Trump. Okay, and the one thing he has for him, the one thing going for him, really, is the fact that whenever he speaks truthfully, and he doesn't cater too much, and that gives him a huge advantage. That's what got Trump in office to begin with, the fact that he was more genuine than Hillary, right? So if you can remove that, that's a huge bonus. Joe Biden is so crooked, okay? Nobody's gonna risk voting for him, you know. And so I say the only way you can beat Trump is either Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang, and both are doing badly in polls, and the Democrats don't want them in. So Trump is winning. It's done.
Yeah, Trump is winning.
Um,
S-
with that said, though,
Like I've made that critique many times before about
mhm,
how the democratic process, especially in the U.S., just became an advertisement reel. Who can advertise? Like, if they were advertising themselves and their policies, fine. But it's more advertising their personalities more than anything. It's been like
yeah, they
that
have
for
to
a while.
sell. Yeah, yeah.
People
It's really
just listen to
hit to
what
a
is.
mass.
That's how
Yeah,
you end up with a Bill Clinton.
Yeah, that's how you get to JFK. That's
that's
how
how
he
you
got
get
into
a
office.
JFK. Yeah,
Yeah, he was way more charming than his opponent. And
You
next
know,
thing you
it's
know,
interesting. It's people who listen to JFK and Nixon debates on the radio instead of watching TV preferred Nixon, and people who watched the
yes,
TV preferred JFK.
yeah,
that is
uh,
a funny thing. Like, all they did was release a picture of Nixon and a picture of Kennedy.
that's
Nixon
enough.
just looked like an evil person.
That's one thing that's hilarious. There, anytime a bald candidate faces a haired candidate, the haired candidate wins in all of U.S. history. And the only time a bald guy made it is when he was running against another bald guy.
That's the thing.
It was an interesting observation. I read it somewhere, um, and I'm like, this is amazing because that's how much bias the election process goes. Um, Looks do matter for the American people. If you're not good looking, people won't fucking
Human nature,
get you to president. Yep, yep.
natural
Interesting,
selection.
right? With that said, though, let's move on to a more interesting or a more engaging topic for you guys. The PS5 got announced, um,
Did they
and
actually show it?
I'm not sure. I haven't been keeping up, but I know that it's been announced and the specs has been released. I guess, and Xbox and Microsoft and Sony are taking very different philosophies with their consoles. PS5 is going for more of the same, but with backwards compatibility. So PS5 is going to have backwards compatibility for all the other PlayStation devices.
All the
While
PlayStations?
Yep,
PSP
so
games and Vita games too.
Really?
not sure about that one. I know the main line is backwards compatible now. Not
So
only
you can
that,
put the discs in, or you can just like download the library of
I
games.
I assume you can put the disc in. Otherwise, it wouldn't be much of a backwards compatibility issue. Not only that, um, what they managed to also do is or what their philosophy is going to be going forward is we want everybody to get the next PS5 for the next gen graphics and all that. So they're going to do more of the same. Microsoft took a very different stance. What they're going to do is they're going to release new gen equipment, but what they're not going to do is they're not going to force you to change your old piece if you still have it. They're still going to support their older generations with their exclusives and their games, and all their games can be played both on the Microsoft Store on PC or on the Xbox machine. So what they're going to go for is basically uh, um, a PC. They're going more towards the PC route, and whenever you get an Xbox machine, you get a PC, but a bit simpler if you don't want to break your brain with all the complexity that a PC comes with.
So
So
Xbox is more of a computer company like Dell or HP or Lenovo than an actual console company now.
That is what I
uh,
always expected
yeah,
Microsoft to try and do. It's
yeah,
surprising
they're
that
moving
only now
away.
they went for it.
No, they've been building this up for a while now. That's why there haven't been too many. Like they've been every time somebody complains, oh, they don't have exclusives because everything they put everything in their Microsoft store. I can just get it on PC and be done with it. They've been doing it for a long time, and for the longest time, we thought they were screwing themselves over. When in reality, they're transitioning away from this idea of exclusives, and they're just gonna be a competitor on just the PC spectrum instead of being a direct competitor with Sony. And basically, what's happening right now is every gaming company is developing their niche. Um,
Do you think
so
people will
Steam,
buy Xbox consoles for PCs, or they'll like just buy
people,
Alienwares and Cyberpower
um, I,
PCs? And
I think so. I think so because for one reason, um, if you don't want to bother with building a PC, and then worrying about your specs and how to upgrade and how to do all these things, you can just get the Xbox machine and it'll do all that for you. It's still a powerful market for the casual
so
gamer.
they should add Windows 10 to the new Xbox machine then, if they are going to
Uh,
going the PC
they
route.
they might as well. I would like to see that, or at least
I'd
the option.
much prefer Xbox to be a competitor to gaming PCs than anything, because you
Yes.
know those Alienwares and Legions and all
Not
that.
that they're good.
They have they're they're not that good, but they have this sort of a shared monopoly where
Yeah, on the
they're all
casual
really
market.
expensive.
Yeah,
They're all really
the
expensive,
casual
and they don't. Yeah,
the casual market. Some kid would want to play something they don't know how to build,
Mom, I want
so
a gaming PC.
yeah, so they go to one of these companies like Alienware and they just get a one full ready PC
And then
with
it
the
only
normal
lasts in
specs.
like 2 to 3 years because that's
Yep,
sh-
yep,
shoddy build
and
quality.
yep, and it's overall bad. But when the Xbox comes with their very affordable, very high specs machine, people would buy that with the controller and
People will.
everything,
I would
right?
buy that.
Yeah, it certainly saves you brain power, right?
Xbox
And
can make gaming laptops too.
yep, and
And
that's what
an amazing
Microsoft.
thing they can do is integrate Microsoft Windows and all of that and the Xbox UI into like two
That
separate
could be the
modes.
next version of Windows. Like Windows
Yep.
has the
Yeah.
Xbox UI.
So
No,
for people who
they
just want to
could
play, they
because
have the Xbox UI for them just specifically, and it also doubles as everything that comes with a PC.
the Xbox UI is already basically a better version of the Windows 8 UI. So they could just make the tablet mode UI the Xbox UI.
There we go. Ton of options, right? I'm very interested in how Microsoft proceeds. Sony are doing more of the same. Whether that will end up screwing them over or not, I don't know. But backwards compatibility is nice, but exclusives are not. We've seen that with everyone. Okay.
Halo, Gears,
The only,
Forza.
I mean, they're exclusives, but you can play them on the fucking PC. So I still have access to them as a PC, as a guy with a PC.
Not to
So
mention, I think with the move Xbox went with right now, the dumbest thing Sony can do is capitalize on exclusives. Because now their main competitor in the exclusive division is gone. Who are they gonna fight? With Nintendo, who doesn't give their games to anyone on Earth?
Um, no, here's the thing. Nintendo's exclusives are well exclusive to
Nintendo gave their games to
their own
mobile.
studios. To their own studios, right? So whenever you get a Mario game, it's because it's developed by Nintendo. They don't want to give it to anybody else. It's fair enough, right?
The
But
only
Sony,
time they gave games to another company was Rare, and they sold them to Microsoft because they were jealous that the best Nintendo 64 games are made by Americans instead of Japanese people.
um,
Well,
Nintendo
that
is
failed. That failed
Nintendo
horribly afterwards.
Nintendo is a very xenophobic company.
um, but
Miyamoto does not like Americans, except Reggie. He likes Reggie.
yeah,
Everybody likes it.
it's very hard to dislike the guy. Um, but in any case, do you think the Sony will survive the next generation, or will that be
I think
their
the
last generation?
PS5 is gonna be the worst one. Just
I think
the worst PlayStation.
I think I think PlayStation does a better job at having a platform that splits the gap between their first party exclusives and third party. People still only really play Nintendo for Nintendo games. I mean,
Yeah, that's fair enough.
even with third party support on the Switch, like
Um,
most third party games, you would still rather play on the Nintendo Switch.
But my problem,
I don't know about that. The
the
I don't
only
have
thing
games
that I'm,
on
I,
the
s-
Switch way more. Sorry, proceed.
the only thing that I will see working out for Sony is that all of the people I know who are Sony fans care about two things: uh, the specs of the machine,
Right?
and the fact that it's Sony, and they would just buy. I'm pretty sure they will buy it regardless. They play only AAA games, regardless of how good it is or not. I've had people who are fans of who are PS4 fans just
Right.
go over and over and over about how great Red Dead was.
I just when I got my PS3 and I saw what the Xbox One and PS4 were doing, I just felt fine with just playing on my PS3. I didn't feel like I needed to get an extra console.
I
Yeah,
got
the only
PS3
reason
too.
I upgraded to an Xbox One, I remember, is because I wanted to play The Witcher 3 and I couldn't afford a PC at the time. And I tried to buy other games, but the only game I really played was The Witcher 3. I played it for like 200 hours, and then I at that
I
point I
played
had to get a
a
real laptop.
I played a lot of God of War on my PS3.
I played God of War on the PS3 too. It's a pretty fun game.
Actually, looking back, most of the games I played on the PS3 were the PS2 HD collections. The Ratchet and Clank collection, the Sly Cooper
Right.
collection, the Infamous collection, the Jack and Daxter collection.
They give you way more value for your buck, right?
There's a lot of, there you can get a lot of games on PlayStation for a great value.
Um, that's actually one thing that makes me like what the Xbox is doing compared to Sony. If you get the gold Xbox thing, their online subscription, you get a free game per month, right?
Yeah,
Um,
but
you get to keep the game, and you get to keep them.
you keep them, right?
Oh, right. So, okay,
Uh,
right.
what's up, Arab?
Right.
I'm just chill. I had my first normal work week this past week. I've been working at my job for 3 months,
Oh,
and I just now had my first 9 to 5
right.
Monday through Friday work week.
What do you work?
But you have to pay more.
Best Buy.
Right.
Best, but this your first job?
My first real job.
Right. Uh,
Like
What is
I've worked part time before, but this is my first. This is what I consider my first real full time job, like my first true job. Like going
Um,
again.
Trumpax, how are you?
you didn't hear that, right? The mic didn't reach.
Yeah,
Um,
and whatever you're going to say will not justify the fact that Xbox started the plague that is paid online. So go on.
Paid online was coming no matter what you do. The new age is the age of the subscription. Just look at Netflix. Um, we as video game guys are denying it, but eventually, the best deal for your buck will be a subscription service that gives you access to games that you can't afford. Just for $20 a month, you can play all these games and more. Um, it's gonna happen. It's guaranteed money. They're doing it in educational platforms like Skillshare. They're doing it in like YouTube Red is doing it. And Patreon, you're doing it technically. Um, it's coming, and it's the future. So for any company to tell you, oh, give us this certain amount of money per month, and you get to have access to a certain service, I'm not particularly against that, especially since you have the choice not to do that whenever you want. Um, for Nintendo, you get to play online, and as a bonus, you get access to the legacy library they have that keeps getting updated. Classic Nintendo, Super Nintendo, etc. And for
I'd rather just have the virtual console and buy the games I want to play.
I understand that, and there are companies, for example, like GOG. GOG lets you do that 100%, right? So there will be markets for both things, but to deny the fact that subscription is a way forward for a lot of companies, and for regular people, because to some people that would be way more value for their buck compared to just
Why do you
going.
think people are more accepting of streaming and subscription services for movies and TV than they are for video games?
Because they've always done that with cable. They're used to it. So when Netflix told you, "Oh, just pay us and you get the same thing," nothing changed for the average
I think
consumer.
people with gaming, there is the element that you're gonna pay for the machine and you're gonna pay for the video game, and you feel like part of the video game, being the online aspect, is being put behind the paywall, and that is what mainly annoys me.
Because you're already paying for the online itself anyway.
I'm playing for the game and the console. Why does half the game, like online heavy games, why does half the game get put behind a paywall?
To pay for the servers you're gonna use.
That would be nice if the servers were actually good. Like, who's the best gaming service? Sony, maybe? Maybe Sony.
Um, Actually, let me help you out with that. You see, Nintendo, whenever they released their online thing, it was for free for a long time, and after a while they said, "We're sorry, we're gonna have to make you pay for it now." And their justification was they want to improve their online capabilities and getting more servers and better connection. And in order to do that, they need to actually charge you for it. So when people were complaining to Nintendo about their shitty Wi-Fi and their shitty connections, the only solution they found that is affordable to them is to actually, have people, pay for it. And you
And
don't
did it
have.
That's fine,
actually improve,
but
or
is it better? Is it better though?
It takes time to get all these servers in order.
it has?
So
Time has
it's gonna take
passed.
time.
Time has
Um,
already passed.
I'm not sure. I don't play too many online games on the Switch, so I can't really confirm. The only game I play is Splatoon, and I'm usually the ones that get flagged from being in Kuwait anyway. So you're gonna have to ask somebody in the States. I'm not sure whether things got fixed or not, but I hope they're being fixed. And Nintendo's in a company that does things just randomly. Trust of the audience is something that was Nintendo's favorite like slogan for as long as I remember. So hopefully they're a slow company to evolve, but hopefully they do, and things get better and they work on their online way better. But that's again, I'm just giving you guys justifications for why these certain things are possible, or why they do them. And while I understand the frustration from a consumer standpoint, um, it could be worse. Generally speaking, just to still getting a console and paying for the online service still cheaper than getting a high-end PC and playing on PC. So
Okay,
it's
we brought it up. Let's talk Patreon. What do you
all right.
think of Patreon as a concept versus Patreon as an execution?
Patreon as a concept is a brilliant idea. As an execution, it's a horrifying SJW propaganda piece of shit. And
Thank
Patreon
you.
itself should die.
Thank you.
Did
Dude,
I summarize the entire point?
that is the entire point.
Yep. But go
You
ahead,
don't
do
need
explain.
examples. Go onto any Instagram, find any pretty face, and you in the bio you'll find a link to their Patreon for people who want to support.
What do you think about
Ex-
kids? What do you
What I
think
think
about
about what?
kids that will get? What do you think? What do you think about kids that will be bullied at school because their moms have OnlyFans or premium Snapchat?
Oh, I can see it. I can see it, and I'm sorry.
Hey, tell your mom I thought her nudes were nice.
You know, just um, we're definitely moving to an interesting period. Okay, I would like to see this generation become parents. Things will be extremely weird.
What if you're an old man? What if you're an old man and you just hear kids watching these live streams? Everything is recorded on the internet.
Um, I can imagine, like, my great grandkids, and in this scenario, I'm still alive, opening like the first episode of the anime Law and seeing their great grandkid his debut on the world stage. uh, just cringing out at the entire thing. Um, I can see it. I can definitely see it. It's gonna be interesting. Seeing all these great YouTube figures being on just just fucking I don't know, PewDiePie's grandkid seeing his first video. You know, dude, the historians of our current period will be salivating over the amount of content they have
Yeah,
around our culture. It's
I gotta
massive.
admit, this is a great debut for all of us here.
Um, it's gonna be fun. Like 50 years from now, people are gonna study this period. 2000 up to 2020. That period is very juicy. Uh, it's gonna be interesting. And if you guys noticed, I titled this podcast "A Year of Awesome." And the reason I did that I gave it that title is because that's my prediction for 2020 and moving forward, is that things will start getting more awesome, not less. Um, it's uh, it's a very
The Roaring
positive.
Twenties.
Yeah, it's gonna be better, and I'm getting all the right signals from this year. Right, there are a lot of things that are gonna be shittier, and that's fine. But there are a lot of things that are improving. Um,
Like,
and well, for one thing, Great Britain's leaving the EU, so that fucking shit institution is crumbling, and the EU's panicking over what they're gonna do about that. That's fun. You have a
What's
ton. What?
what's bad about the EU? Not saying there isn't anything bad, but just to help me
Um,
understand, like what's wrong with the
they
EU?
basic concept, they started as an economic union, where so to keep everybody strong economically, and the stronger countries take care of the weaker countries, and everybody thrives. What it became it became a political union where
Till that
agendas get
degrees.
pushed. Yeah, it's failing. It became a political union, and they started adding all these migrant policies, and their currency's failing because their basically their staff is unelected, right? You don't really it's not really a democratic process, and the countries are held hostage within it with the threat of economic collapse if they leave, but
Is
there is no guarantee of
so
economic.
Greece left, and that's why they
Greece,
collapsed.
no, Greece didn't. Greece got screwed over, and nobody could do anything about that. And it's one of the primary reasons Britain wants to fuck off before it's their turn.
Is it any surprise that these countries can't handle immigration when they don't even get along with each other?
It's worse than that. They have immigration forced down their throat. There are only two EU countries that I know about that are not accepting migrants, and that's Hungary and Poland, right? These two countries are not accepting migrants in, and the EU is pressuring them harshly in order to get migrants in and follow Germany's lead. But you don't get a say in that. The EU was not supposed to be a political union, but what it's going for is trying to make a USE, the United States of Europe, and everybody knows, they were one step from making an European army, you know, an international guard of sorts. They're really pushing that agenda, and those
Because they
agenda
don't want to
those
be a part
agenda
of NAFTA anymore?
No, they basically the idea of the European Union probably, they know that people wouldn't accept it, but what they wanted is like basically the U.S., Russia, China, they're too powerful, so they wanted a body where the entirety of Europe becomes a superpower, same as the others, and so have a lot of more power on the world stage. What they don't understand is that Europe is an extremely complicated place with a very long history. There and because of that, it's not that simple. They don't even speak similar languages. The language barrier is huge.
You know
And
what's
no, hmm?
you know what's funny about the world superpowers is if if Hillary Clinton would have just let Gaddafi make Africa like the fourth superpower, it would have helped balance out. It would have helped just balance out China's chi- resting power. What was it called? China's sleeping power or
Yeah.
soft power? Like,
Um, Basically, it was in the
because now we
interest
have to
of
deal with China abusing soft power.
yes, but if you make a superpower in Africa, that's way more things to worry about. So nobody would want that.
Why would that be the
Nobody
case?
who is just well, you don't want more players on the world stage. You don't want more people who are as powerful as you. You want everybody to be less powerful than you, and then you get to do what you want. Now, the implications of that are ridiculous, and you are right. And like having more superpowers is a good thing. It creates balance, creates prosperity, but it would come at the expense of giving away some power to this new superpower. And
Yeah, but
there
that
is
would
no
create a
superpower that wants
monopoly
to do
of
that.
power. And progress is only created through good competition.
Yeah, but since when does anybody who wants a monopoly care about competition? You know what I mean?
People who fail because they're become stagnant by being a monopoly for too long.
It's gonna happen. I don't know when, and I don't care. I don't care to live to see that period. But a lot of decisions that happen on the world stage do not happen by rational people. You have to keep that in mind. I've learned that a long time ago. Is that you really have to treat those the superpowers like just people. You know, children, in fact. Um, and you have to wait and see, right?
Does that mean everyone kind of acts like children?
In a way, our societies reflect the people in it. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the society itself is a living entity as well as you. So it has its own
Collective
dynamics and its own
consciousness.
yep, just and each little group of people have their own thing, and that's what really unifies them into one category and makes them agree and on certain traditions and certain categories of being. So um, considering that, you would treat the U.S. as a person who's been stepped on most of their lives, and then they got their independence, and then they started building up the power, right? And nobody cared about them until suddenly they won two world wars, and now they're at the head of the snap. And they were not prepared for it. And now what they're doing is they're trying their best to just stay there because they never want to share that position of being just another power. They just they need to. And China is basically a traumatized child who's been beaten too hard and doesn't want to get beaten again, and it tries its best to basically build up its strength at the cost of everything around it, just so it never gets beaten again. Um, you can Russia's Russia,
So,
and
like
there's
Yao
just
Ming's extreme policies to get rid of the drug problem. Like, we got rid
yes,
of the drug problem, but at what cost?
pretty much. India is a growing superpower that nobody can stop. Um, it's going to be this. If there's anybody that's going to be a check on China, it's going to
Does
be
a
India.
lot of people does a lot of people equal being a superpower though? Like soft power takes more than just having a lot of people.
Oh no, it's growing at a slower rate than China, but make no mistake, in 50 years, India will be an economic powerhouse. They're already building their industry. It's going to take longer than China. You know, they're not killing all their people to modernize, but uh, by the time they reach their full potential, India is going to be a very scary place. Uh, not really scary, but you know what I mean. Just imposing. Um, and it's in everybody's interest that's a superpower to stop that from happening. They won't be able to, but they they'll try. When Sudan was growing to be a superpower in Africa, they stopped that too. They split it apart. When Libya
Libya.
started flirting with the superpower concept and starting like a gold-backed currency bank, they just got
Yep,
destroyed.
Hillary Clinton took care of that.
Yep. So um, basically, the second Iran even considered nuclear power, and of course, the implication there being eventually nuclear weapons, everybody was afraid that Iran will be a superpower, and they don't want that. It's just going to keep happening, knitting things in the bud. And if the EU ever tries to become a superpower too, that's going to happen as well. They're going to start to stop it. It's not gonna, because the European Union is a really bad idea and with horrible execution. And
When do you feel? You think there? I think there's probably going to be maybe at least one really, 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 really big war this century.
I don't think we can afford a war. Oddly enough, there'll be trade wars, there'll be proxy wars. They won't be war proper. And the reason I say that is because when the Korean War happened, um, and China and the U.S. and the UN nations in general were just ripping
Cold
each
War.
other apart. It, people came to them, right, and they would go to a president, and I don't remember who the president was at the time, but they would go to him and they would ask him, "Are we at war?" And he's like, "Oh, no, 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 war, no, 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 no. This is more like a policing action, you know." Just keep it there. Just keep it there. Don't call it war, because the second we call it war, that means nukes are good. So let's just eliminate this term. And it's gonna keep going that way, because the um, the implication of war is a very terrifying thing now with the existence of nuclear weapons. Um, and if you remember, like when Trump was this close to declaring war on Iran, the second he backed out, because what if they have nuclear weapons we don't know about? What if they're able to make one
Mutually
bomb?
assured destruction.
It's done. What if Russia and China decide to go to the US in the middle of the war and say, if you don't back the fuck out, we're in? What happens?
Mutually
You
assured
know?
destruction.
So the risk is too high, right? So having a very elaborate war, it's not going to be the case. Maybe you'll have proxy wars, maybe you'll have civil wars, you'll have a ton of stuff like that. But having a legitimate war, I don't think any nation can afford it at the moment. Any of the superpowers, they cannot. If the second they do, everybody's fucked.
The whole
Because
world.
yeah, because if history taught us anything, is that um, World War I was supposed to be stopped because the economic factor would be disastrous to the nations doing it. Well, guess what? Nobody cared. People just took more debt, more national debt. Nobody cared. People just kept spending and spending and spending until one side won. Um, it never stopped them. If your nation's existence is at stake, um,
You'll
you
do whatever you have to.
you yeah, you have to do whatever it takes. And the reason the
World War
nukes were used
II
to begin
was
with.
Germany's revenge.
Yep, yep, it was the payback of what happened to them. It was the it all started with that one mess of which was World War I, and everybody thought that was never gonna happen. And if it was gonna be 1 month, right? It was gonna be one very quick war. Things will get resolved as usual, and then we're done. None of that happened, and none of that can afford that to happen again. So no, I don't think we're gonna see any war anytime soon.
It's
Um,
it's crazy, man. If only they let him into art. If only they let Adolf into art school. Have you seen his
With that,
paintings?
I have not. I never cared enough about Hitler to look up anything about him. Really, anything I know about him is within the context of
They're
war.
actually pretty
But
good. It's just that the art school he was trying to get into was really pretentious, and they just didn't let him in because his art wasn't a certain kind type of art they wanted at the time.
well, it's like every other place if you think about it. Art. Anybody who enters art, poetry, or any of that shit, all of these places are just hyper pretentious. They're looking for something. I don't know what they're looking for. They're looking for bad stuff. Okay, they're looking for horrible artwork. They're looking for abstract art. That's horribly shit.
Abstract, gosh.
Yeah, like
Really
whatever
poetry with no
like,
rhythm.
poetry with no rhythm. All of that ridiculous crap, all just to increase the level of pretentiousness and elitism in the thing. I'm horribly against it. Even in writing, look who gets the Nobel Peace Prize winning things. When I
Do
got
people even check
into
that
school,
anymore? Nobel Peace
I
Prize
don't.
winners and all that?
I have no idea, but I got a book called Lord of the Flies. Okay, Nobel Prize winner. I'm like, it has to be good. Let's read, right? I opened the book and I couldn't get 30 pages in because the author spent 20 fucking pages describing one fucking beach. Can the plot move, please?
That
Can we
is
get
why
something?
I cannot read novels anymore. I just can't. The the whole format of a novel is just describing places with detail that I find so boring, that I've grown to find extremely boring. It's just a lot of filler.
Yeah,
When I
and
describe a thing that I need to know.
funny enough, the books that I enjoyed were always the ones with a reasonable amount of description, and the way they do their description is through motion. So the character moves his eyes, looks at this, gives you detail, and then says something about it, or communicates, or moves the plot somehow. And then as he's moving, more details get added in, and they slowly dimensionalize the place. But if I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna describe it, how the place exactly looks before the characters get to interact, what's the point? I'll
That's
get
Lord of the
bored.
Rings.
That's Lord of the Rings, and that's why I can't read it. I tried,
He spends like 10, 15 pages just describing before you even see what the characters are doing.
which sucks. It's horrible.
Like,
I,
w-
I despise it.
what are you trying to do? Are you that worried about getting the specific image in your head into the reader's mind?
No,
Do you
it's
not
what
trust
the
the
literature.
reader's imagination?
And
It's what the
isn't
literature people like.
the
That's
biggest supposed merit of novels the fact that it allows the reader's imagination to go wild, but you're spending so much time describing to narrow down to force the reader to have your view
it's
instead of giving
it's
them just enough
it's
to
all
let their
wrong.
mind go
It's
free.
it's none of it is as it should be. You're all both of you are right. It's not as it should be. It's utterly ridiculous, and
You
people
know what
still
would be
buy this. Yeah.
a wild change to novels that would my eyes I would be perfectly fine with if you have these stories that are just mainly the story, the text, and when you describe details once every like 10 pages or so, there's a detailed sketch of that area.
Look no further
Spare me
than
a lot of
Martin's. Uh, Martin released a book, and it's a novel. Um, but in the novel, it's called The Ice Dragon. It's a kid's book, technically,
kids.
and yeah, and when you open it, there's an entire chapter, and with each chapter comes a sketch that describes what the chapter is about. And by reading the chapter, you can look at the image and then connect them together because it's basically the climax of the chapter. So it's drawn beautifully in like in just ink. It's just an ink fucking thing, and it was a very nice style. I really liked it. So yeah, people are experimenting with that, but
I'd love to see it.
there is no saving um, the art. The art taster. There's no saving the poets, and there's no saving the novelists because all of them are just trapped in a whacking cycle. They just wank, 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 and they just keep wanking each other
I
for all
don't know if
eternity.
I don't know if I've ever ever read a single novel in my life that like gave me as much entertainment as any movies I've watched or any manga I've read or any video games I've played or any music I've listened to. It's just
And you also get a lot of elitism when it comes to novel and novel
Yeah,
reading. You get these people, they're like, oh, there's nothing but like a cup of coffee and a good book. And I read the big novels in the
I
bus,
don't
show you that I'm
I don't have
intellectual.
a TV in my house.
no, there are certain books that are very easy to read. Funny enough, if you are willing to actually spend the time, because it is a long book, Martin's Song of Ice and Fire, his books are really easy to read. They use very simple language. They're minimum on description. The plot's always moving, and it's always interesting how he writes his characters and how they move. Right? It's
Yeah.
very simple, very easy to read compared to Tolkien's. Right? Um, it's besides its size, it's not really that scary of a book. But a lot of people um, do not respect his the way he writes. You know why? Because he has something that I think is a must if novels are gonna ever evolve, right? Which is using different stylization depending on what type of text is being used at the moment. So if he's reading a letter, you get a different font and a different stylization. If the character is thinking in their head, you get a different font, and if they're talking, they get a different font from the regular description.
And
So
what's
as
wrong with
you're
that?
moving,
Let
your
me
eyes
guess, they
get
call it a
breaks.
gimmick. They call it gimmicky
Yes, they call it gimmicky and unnecessary, and they disapprove of it. But the only reason they allow it is because Martin is a big author,
because he
right?
makes money for publishers.
Because you see, I adapted that style while experimenting with a novel I want to write, and then I shared that no that beginning few chapters with a couple of people, and they all told me the same thing. This is weird. Why do you use it? I'm like, I use it because it's correct. That's how you should do it, right? Because it's simple, and it's easy for the person to follow along. I'm like, I don't know if you can get away with that. What do you mean I can't? What you know? That's exactly that. That's the exact thing they said. I don't know if you can get away with that, as if it is a lowering of your quality. You know.
Uh,
So,
You just
the
don't ignore the haters.
can you guys
uh,
name a creative medium, an art medium
mm,
that isn't going downhill in current age?
um, I can't name one that's going. Dude, besides art, poetry, and regular literature, everything else is rising as far as I'm concerned. Um,
If one more label try to stop me.
no, here's the thing: we have more of things, and because there's more of things, there are more shitty things. But make no mistake, there's a lot of good content out there.
The burden
So
of knowledge.
Well, there's a lot of good books and a lot of good paintings out there, a lot of good poems somewhere,
yes, but
I assume. But
yes, but no, no. Let me
I'm
explain.
talking
Let me explain.
mainstream.
Let me explain. Let me explain. Okay, the reason these three particular platforms I just mentioned are dying is because the audience they have is an elitist audience, and the money doesn't talk. If you go to something like movies, the money talks. When Joker came out, and that was a great movie, everybody liked it except the critics. And fuck the critics, who cares about them, right? Money talks, right? So
Martin Scorsese didn't like it because I don't know why.
because ignore these fuckheads. They don't know shit, right? TV shows.
But his boyfriend Robert De Niro was in that movie as one of the main characters.
Moving on, okay? TV shows. TV shows. We have a lot of shitty TV shows, but compared to TV shows from 2010, those are 100,000 times better because they stopped doing it on a 30 episode per season format and made condensed them down to 13. So even the shittiest of stories are now they are tolerated by the fact that the plot actually moves instead of having an episodic show every 3 seconds, just to fill in the gaps, right? Um, when it comes to comics, comics are getting better and better. People, because not a lot of people are buying them anymore. So if you're gonna have to sell, you're gonna have to really improve your shit, right? And to me, the pioneer of it right now is the Walking Dead comics. They're the ones that are consistently making a ton of money. At the moment, you have when it comes to um, video games, we are really witnessing the era of quality
Yeah, I
finally
mean,
emerging out of the shitstorm that's happened during the 2010s, right?
Is it? I, or is it too early to tell?
your mic
I
isn't
can't.
working anymore.
Your mic turned off.
Yeah, your mic isn't working, man.
Guy.
Your mic. Your mic, Trillion.
Yes. We tell him his mic isn't working. He pauses for a second, then keeps going. What a legend. Oh, I guess I'm the host now.
Okay, well, one thing I was going to talk about is, well, Trillion can catch up when he gets back, but what do you think about like watching good content and bad content? I've been thinking about this because it's you people don't want to waste their time watching things that they'll think are bad, but at the same time, you can't determine what you think is good and what isn't good if you don't watch bad stuff too. So how do you develop your taste in content? How do you develop your taste in content and entertainment without watching anything that's bad? Because with the burden of knowledge, you don't have enough brain power to just absorb all that information, and you don't live forever. You don't want to waste your time on something that you think is bad. But how do you develop your sense of judgment without experiencing bad things as well?
Well, the main way I've seen it is just simply people, when it comes to content, just go for word of mouth the majority of the time. They ask their friends what is good and what is not, what is bad and what is not. And that's how they tend to develop what is good and what is bad.
Because it's I'm not
One
going to go out
person
of my
makes the
way.
investment,
Hmm.
and everyone around them gets the same mindset from
No, actually, it's very simple. I can treat it this exactly. If you have a meal, okay, let's say steak. If you eat enough bad steaks, you can tell a bad steak when you see one. It's that simple,
But
with
should
even
you
forms of
but
food.
should you have to go through a bunch of bad steaks in order to truly appreciate
Um,
good steak?
I think that happens on its own. You don't go
no,
and do it.
no, the only way it can possibly happen, like if you want to learn a new craft, you have to make all the mistakes of getting into the craft before you can become proficient at it. Like a certain level
So
of error has to exist.
so when it comes to consuming entertainment and enjoying fiction, you just naturally along the way consume
Yeah,
stuff that you don't like and
yeah, you
set
move
to
your way up.
develop your
Yeah,
sense of judgment for what you do like.
yep.
Think about the
But how do
many
you
games or shows you've watched as a kid and that you loved. And then when you grow up, you look back at them, and despite all the fun and enjoyment you got out of them, you think, hey, they weren't that good. They were pretty terrible shows.
but
Yes.
Well,
that's where nostalgia comes in to make you still able to enjoy them despite that.
put nostalgia aside. What I'm trying to get to is that your taste and just is just an experience. And when you have new experience, things that you thought were good, kind of, the bar changes. The bar goes up and down for various things.
Well, yeah, we're not disagreeing here with that aspect. That's mainly supporting the point I've made, which is your taste
Yeah.
upgrades. So you start watching certain things that are of mediocre quality, and you'd enjoy them very much. And as you watch more stuff with better quality, you start realizing that the quality, what you thought was quality before, is no longer the case, and your taste goes up, and that's okay. That's why there are certain games or certain shows that have the term "they didn't age well," because during their time they used to be hip and powerful and great, but as more time passed, the flaws started to show.
I swear it's so bad. It is so unfunny. Oh,
Isn't that all sitcoms?
Every sitcom in existence is horrible, but Friends has a special place in hell.
yes.
Okay,
I'll be there for you.
it was horrifying. I don't know how people watched it. Even as a
Do you
kid, I
think there are
couldn't.
people who have no friends that watch Friends so that they feel like they understand what friendship?
Whose
Um,
peripheral is that?
he's
Okay, I know. Okay, I figured it out.
yeah, you know who now? Yeah.
Okay, I figured
Um,
it out.
What?
uh, for anybody confused, I'm not actually at home. I'm sitting in our Duania, and our the Duania is basically where we guys chill. So I decided not to go home this time. I stayed up all day, all night. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just do the stream here instead of going home. Um, so yeah, I spend most of my time in this place. You've seen it, Tassan. Like whenever I posted that mahjong picture of us playing mahjong, that was here. Just we show up almost every day here.
I want to play Mahjong. So,
Yeah, you've never been on a stream with Hassan yet, but he'll give you a nice headache once you get him. I mean, you did Khalid, yes, but Khalid doesn't really count. Khalid's Professor Hentai, just to give a perspective.
I wanna meet Khalid. I have many questions.
What do you guys want me to give him a text?
Bring
Tell
him
him to
on
show up next
another
time.
time. Let's say
You want
hi.
Professor Hentai on the stream? Okay, why not? Um, with that said, though, we are nearing the end, and I am pretty tired because I did not sleep yet. So we're gonna wrap this up. Hassan already
See.
already left early, but yeah, let's wrap this up. Shout outs anybody?
Shoutouts to Hideo Kojima, the best person. The best person.
Kojima.
Um, Kojima, play man standing, and then maybe you know what a rope game is.
I
A
like stick
strand type
games.
game.
I like stick games.
um, okay, guys. Thank you guys for showing up. Remember, we do have a Discord for the
Shout out
zero
to friends.
viewers. Shout out to no fuck friends, and
Shout out to
remember,
Joey's spin-off.
no, you guys just torture me. That's your job, right? Phone games,
Yes.
sitcoms. You just want me to hate my life, right? No, let's wrap this up. See you guys later, and fuck friends,
And,
and Kojima, and rope
Bye
games.
bye.
and you, the viewer.